Good morning. What's probably going to be one of the hottest days of 2021, I thought I'd come out in the garden, hoping that you might be able to hear the birds. Can hear an aeroplane now, and hopefully not too much of the roadworks that are going on out at the front of the house. Do you like history? In junior school, I had a very scary teacher who dinned dates of monarchs into us, and I never thought I'd forget them. In fact, I can see my scrawly handwriting with all the dates written down, and they used to terrify me. Actually, I have forgotten them now, but I had a great teacher in senior school. Oh, great history teacher, I mean. I was fascinated that she'd wanted to be a ballerina, but following an accident, that wasn't possible. But she brought the stories of the past to life, gory bits and all. You can find out about the history of your house. Actually, we're only the second owners of this house, so you can tell how long we've been here. So we know a little bit about our house, what it was called, and how it was situated, and how buildings were going up all around at the time in the 1930s. The fields and the farmlands, the cattle arch, where the cattle actually were going through under the railway. And Frederick Baldwin, the church's founder, actually describes Worcester Park as a village. And those in Worcester Park have people like David Rymill, who write books about our local history or its connections to famous paintings and people, and there's Ophelia and H.G. Wells and Daley Thompson and John Major, Henry VIII, quite a few famous people around here. Which brings me to the topic of our thoughts for this time, heritage. Heritage is a person's unique, inherited sense of family identity, the values, traditions, cultures, and artifacts handed down by previous generations. Some families define their heritage primarily as their ethnic, cultural, or national identity. Now, vintage denotes something from the past of high quality, especially something representing the best of its kind, sort of whether that's a wine or a classic episode of Sherlock Holmes. So what is the difference between these two? Well, heritage, it's something that's handed down from the past as a tradition, something that comes or belongs to one by reason of birth or an inherited lot or portion. And in law, it's something that may have been inherited by legal descent or succession. Vintage, on the other hand, makes me think of antique shops and programs like Repair Shop and Antiques Roadshow, of items from a previous age, something someone thinks is interesting, valuable maybe, something to be treasured. English Heritage, part of whose tagline is bringing the story of England to life through cultural heritage, which includes buildings and monuments and collections of information, photos, paintings, newspaper cuttings, and then the natural heritage, which obviously is mountains, rivers, and landscape. And every day there are heritage open days. Every year, there are heritage open days celebrating our history and culture. Heritage, however, is about identity, culture, ancestry, being an heir to something. National anthems too are a part of heritage, symbolising and evoking eulogies of the history and traditions of a country or nation, and how we sing with gusto at sporting events or the last night of the proms. And how many people these days sign up to ancestry websites to find out where they came from. TV programs help celebs discover their background, connections they never knew about. How I love reading my mother's stories from her past. It's given me insights, intrigues, scandals. It's told me of former times, times of war, hardship, of traditions, of my grandfather Thomas, the train driver, who drove the trains taking soldiers to war in 1914. And further back of my famous cricketing ancestor making the first century in a gentleman versus players match at Lord's, also Thomas. And of the ancestor, another train driver, probably another Thomas, who drove the train bringing back the body of David Livingstone, known as Africa's greatest missionary. I love reading about this and remembering my mother's joy in her own history and wanting to pass it on. As for Bible heritage, lineage lists in the Bible give that historical background to nations. We're intrigued to hear the line of David that leads through an amazing list of ordinary people to the birth of Christ. Threaded through, we realize this is God's story, written down for us, our Christian heritage. In fact, there's a Christian Heritage Organisation UK which celebrates the history of the Christian church, its cathedrals, its church leaders, its radical preachers, its missionaries. Psalm 119, verse 111, I'm going to paraphrase, merging several versions, but says, "Your laws, your decrees, your instructions give me great joy." The Message version words it like this: "By your words I can see where I'm going. They throw a beam of light on my dark path. I've committed myself and I'll never turn back from living your righteous order. Everything's falling apart on me. God, put me together again with your word. Adorn me with your finest sayings. God, teach me your holy rules. My life is as close as my own hands, but I don't forget what you have revealed. The wicked do their best to throw me off track, but I don't swerve an inch from your course." And this is the line: "I inherited your book on living. It's mine forever. What a gift. How happy it makes me. I concentrate on doing what you say. I always have and always will." It's also made me realize that heritage actually looks forward to the next generation. Our wedding verse from Psalm 48, verse 14, the RSV version says, "This is God, our God forever and ever. He will be our guide forever." However, it wasn't until some years later we saw the importance of the verses immediately before it. Walk about Zion, go round about her, number her towers, consider well her ramparts, go through her citadels, that you may tell the next generation that this is God, our God forever and ever. He will be our guide forever. We were recently given a book of daily Bible studies aimed at grandparents. And I'd like to share this story about telling the next generation. The young boy looked up at his grandfather and wondered aloud, "Grandpa, how do you live for Jesus?" The respected grandfather stooped down and quietly told the boy, "Just watch." As the years went by, the grandfather was an example to the boy of how to follow Jesus. He stayed rock steady in living for him. Yet the grandson often lived in a way that was not pleasing to God. One day, the young man visited his grandfather for what both knew would be the last time. As the older man lay dying, his grandson leaned over the bed and heard his grandpa whisper, "Did you watch?" That was the turning point in the boy's life. He understood when his grandpa had said, "Just watch," he meant, "Follow my example as I follow the example of Christ." Verses from 1 Corinthians 11. Oh, let's remind ourselves of our heritage in God. You know me, I can't do these meditations without including some songs. The blessed assurance, Jesus is mine. Oh, what a foretaste of glory divine. Heir of salvation, purchase of God, born of his Spirit, washed in his blood. This is my story. This is my song, praising my Jesus all day long. Who you say I am? Who am I that the highest King would welcome me? I was lost, but he brought me in. Oh, his love for me, oh, his love for me. Who the Son sets free, oh, is free indeed. I'm a child of God. Yes, I am. Oh, the richness of a relationship with our God. And I'd like to finish with some reminders from Scripture, from 1 John 3:1. See what great love the Father has lavished on us, that we should be called children of God. And from Romans 8:17, using the Message version again. This resurrection life you received from God is not a timid, grave-tending life. It's adventurously expectant, greeting God with a childlike, "What's next, Papa?" God's Spirit touches our spirits and confirms who we really are. We know who He is. We know who we are, Father and children. And we know we are going to get what's coming to us, an unbelievable inheritance. We go through exactly what Christ goes through. If we go through hard times with Him, then we're certainly going to go through the good times with Him. That's what we have, folks, an unbelievable inheritance. Thank you for joining me today. Have a good day.